They may be called the next generation, but they're the church of today. Reach, disciple, and mobilize students to share the hope of the gospel. This is Next Gen on Mission with Shane Pruitt and Paul Wooster.
Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the Next Gen on Mission podcast. My name is Shane Pruitt, National Next Gen Director for the North American Mission Board. And with me as always is my brother, my co-host, my ride or die, Paul Wooster, our National Collegiate Director. What's up, Paul?
What's going on, man? Hey, I'm taking a break from sodas and energy drinks. So I got my Gatorade right now. I'm still drinking coffee at times, but I got Gatorade. So I'm trying to be a little bit more healthy. I don't know if that's more healthy or not, but that's where I'm
so proud of you, dude, because you're like an energy drink guru, man. You're always like talking about an energy drink that you're drinking. So, man, I'm proud of you, man. Congratulations.
Baby steps, bro. Baby steps.
That's right. You're like, I'm trying to quit. Awesome. Well, Paul, we're currently recording. You're in Hawaii, man. So, man, I think here it's about 1:30. So that means there it's about 3:30 in the morning, right?
9:30 a.m. actually right now.
That's awesome. Well, Paul, man, I'm so excited about our guest today, man. He is like a living legend in collegiate ministry.
Yeah, dude, he is awesome. I love Arliss. I've been following him for years. When I started collegiate ministry, he was already writing articles and a blog all about best practices for collegiate ministry. So it's so cool to get to have him on. It's a special opportunity for us.
Absolutely. So, hey, Next Gen on Mission friends, today we want to welcome Arliss Dickerson to the Next Gen on Mission podcast. He's been in collegiate ministry for over 40 years, a faithful follower of Jesus, a husband, a father, a grandfather, author. Just name it. We could go on and on and on, but we don't want to waste any more time. We want to welcome our dear friend, Arliss Dickerson, to the Next Gen on Mission podcast. So Arliss, welcome, my friend. We're so glad that you're on today.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, hey, before we jump in and get too spiritual, I saw in your bio where you met your wife in college, you ran for student body president, and you found out she actually voted against you. Is that right?
I ran for student body president. I lost by 4 votes. And so after that, then we started dating. And I think on our second or third date, she told me that she voted against me because she thought I liked myself too much.
Hey, well, praise the Lord that she ended up liking you herself. So praise the Lord for that.
I think she decided she needed to work on that issue with me. So
that's right. Hey, that's right. Hey, I always say one of the gifts of God in my life is my wife, and she definitely knows how to keep me humble. Praise the Lord. Yeah. Well, Arliss, before we get too much deeper in the conversation, tell us one fun fact about you that we may not already know.
I like to play golf. I'm not a good golfer, but I like to play golf. I made 1 hole in one. I was playing by myself and nobody saw it but me.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I said, well, the Lord saw it, so that's good enough. You know?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's
I believe you, Arliss. I believe you. I trust you. And that's like when I go out surfing, there's a thing called getting barreled. And so it's like when you go through the tube of the wave, and I'll tell my brother, hey, I got barreled today. And he's always looking at me like, are you serious?
It always happens when you're by yourself. How convenient. Yeah.
So Arliss, we'll jump into this question we ask all our guests. What have you observed? What do we need to know about Generation Z?
Well, these days, I think I talk to college ministers more than I talk to students. So I'm not as good on that as I might be. But I think 2 things. I think they want information. They're looking for people who will invest in them, and they want to make their own decisions. They want you to give them good information, and they can make their own decisions. But I still think college students are the most fascinating people to talk to and visit with.
Absolutely. And we agree with that, Arliss. In fact, that's why Paul and I do what we do. We love this. It's a conviction for us. And one thing that we really respect about you, Arliss, is just how faithful you've been to the Lord and to reaching people with the gospel for not just years, but decades. And, and it seems like, and I know it's always been an issue. Social media has probably put it more in front of our face, but it's almost like on a weekly basis, you hear of another leader who has fallen, either morally, or they burned out or walked away from ministry, or even some have left the faith. And so we just appreciate how committed you are and faithful you've been really over a lifetime. And that's what we wanted to talk about, is serving the Lord over a lifetime. And so we love your passion, your zeal, your commitment, your faithfulness. So tell us a little bit about your story of how you came to know the Lord, and then just what the Lord's done in your life. Yeah.
Well, I grew up in a county seat First Baptist Church, very typical story. Came to the Lord when I was, 9 years old. My mother led me to the Lord one afternoon after church. And I grew up in that church, was very active in that church. And then in high school, I was all about sports, and I wasn't a bad guy by any means. I went to church, I had my church friends, and I had my football, basketball friends. And when I began to feel like maybe God was calling me to the ministry or whatever like that, but I felt like it was to be a coach because coaches had such a big impact on me. And I went to college, and I got involved in what was called Baptist Student Union then. And I saw people who were really, I felt like I'd kind of had separate parts of my life. Here was my school life, and here was my church life. And I became connected in college through the BSU with people who I really felt like had integrated all of that. And that really, moved in my life. And then as I was graduating, I was offered some opportunities to work in college ministry, but the Vietnam draft and the Vietnam War was big then. Wow. And so I was not ordained. And I had my church, where I'd served as summer youth minister and grown up, said they would like to ordain me, but I did not, because I didn't want to think that I'd been ordained in order to stay out of the army or stay out of the war. Right. I wanted to feel like I'd been ordained because the Lord called me in that. Amen. And so I wound up being drafted, went to Vietnam. One night I was laying in a guard tower with rain dripping in my face, trying to use a steel helmet as a pillow. And I thought, Lord, that was really pretty stupid on my part, wasn't it? I could have been on. Wow. Well, the guys I was with in Vietnam, a lot of them just said, hey, when I get out, I'm going to go home, stay drunk. That's just what I'm going to do when I get out of Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And I started, I just had such a sense that I wanted my life to count. Yeah. And I started saying it was a dumb thing to say, but it was kind of the only thing, I said, well, I'm going to go home and run for governor of Arkansas. And I didn't go home and run for governor of Arkansas, and that really wasn't, where I was headed. But it was my calling that, and just my time in Vietnam really enhanced that in my life. I want my life to count. I don't want to go home and be drunk. I don't want to go home and just exist. I want my life to count. And so anyway, that's the short version.
And that's one thing I love about you, is you've stayed focused on college ministry for all these years. And so you've been championing it. You write articles, you promote it, you raise money for seminaries to help with people that are interested in college ministry. And so why are you so laser focused on reaching, discipling, and mobilizing college students?
Well, I call it the high calling. I really, I've said when God calls hundreds of preachers, he only calls a few college ministers, and I'm glad to be a part of the high calling. Well, I just think, college students, I think that's the perfect age. They're not in cement yet, and yet they can make their own decisions. And I just think there's not any other age in life like that. And if we were to take that as seriously as we ought to, it would make all the difference in the world. I think even if we did international ministry like we ought to, we wouldn't have to send missionaries overseas. Wow. International students would go back to their countries because they're already, going to become the economic and political leaders and so forth. And so I just think the college campus and college students offer opportunities that's just not there anywhere else in touching and reaching people.
Yeah, absolutely. And Arliss, Paul and I, we feel the same way that really next gen ministries, whether it's collegiate ministry, student ministry, even children's ministry, that's a high calling. And so as Paul and I travel around and we speak in so many events and we're around so many leaders, your name is a name that just keeps coming up because of your faithfulness. And really, you're a lifer. You're a lifelong devotee to this. And so one thing I always tell churches, especially local churches, if they're looking to hire a college pastor or youth pastor, I always say, if that person tells you they're just doing this as a stepping stone, then don't hire them. Now we know the Lord can do whatever he wants, right? He can move somebody into planting a church or pastoring a church or whatever, but we want people who feel committed to this, lifers. So what advice would you give leaders that do feel called to be lifers of reaching college students with the gospel? What advice would you give them?
Well, one of my big things on that is that there are different seasons in your life, and there's different strengths and weaknesses to every season. And so part of it is to recognize, okay, what's the strength of the season I'm in? Okay, and how do I play to that strength? What's the weakness of the season I'm in, and how do I mitigate that? And, I've got a thing I do, spring, summer, and so forth and so on. And I really do. I think there's a strength to every age, but there's a strength to every, age older as well. And so not just, college ministry is not just for the young. God's not just calling us to be buddies. College students got lots of buddies. But they need mentors and people to experience past their life experience that will invest in them and so forth. Lifeway did a study a few years ago where it came back that one of the top things that young adults wanted was an older adult to mentor them and speak into their life. And so, it just is a myth that college ministry is for the only for the young, or till I can get my own church. I would speak sometimes in a church on Sunday morning. Somebody would come up and say, I think you're good enough to have your own church. Well, well, thanks, but I have my own ministry,
Yep.
And but here's the other thing. We have got to make it financially possible for people to stay in it their whole life. When they have kids, they're having to have braces and doing this and that and so forth. Right. And some people get forced out of college ministry just in having to provide for their family. And I think that's where the responsibility of the greater church and our denomination as a whole, we got to make it possible for people to stay for the long term.
Wow. Absolutely. Yeah.
That is so good. You invest in, and truly is what you invest in is what you value. And so we are big fans of next gen leaders being well resourced and encouraged and mentored and having those support systems that they need. So thank you for saying that, because I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle, Arliss. Also, something you mentioned is this need that college students and young adults have for mentors. I've just noticed so many of them don't have a great relationship, especially men, I've noticed, with their father. Their father wasn't really the spiritual mentor. And so, I mean, I'm even getting emotional thinking about it. Like, just the opportunity that I've had with so many young men to kind of play that spiritual father role. And I know you've done that with many as well. So yes, just thanks for bringing that up. Is just, I think that we have such an opportunity to encourage and play key roles in students' lives. Anything you'd add to that thought, Arliss?
Well, I just, one of the things I started doing many, many years ago was meeting an hour a week with our student leaders. And I just think that's a huge investment. And, I was amazed at how many didn't feel like they had anybody that talked to them like that, I always say, well, okay, we're going to meet for an hour. The first 30 minutes, we're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about. In the second 30 minutes, we're going to talk about your ministry responsibility, how it's going, what you need to do, et cetera, And, we started seeing a lot of people call the ministry and all like that. And people would say, why are so many people call the ministry out of y'all's ministry? And for a long time, I'd say, I don't know, it's just the Lord. Well, it was the Lord, but I'll go back to what we were doing. I think it was that investment in individuals and so forth.
Yeah.
And I think that multiplies your ministry.
Yep.
Yeah.
That personal aspect. I love that. So you're a prolific author. How many books have you written on college ministry at this point now, Arliss?
How many have I written, or how many have actually sold?
let's go with written, because you also have given away quite a few for free as well. So,
I've got I think it's about 7.
Nice.
2 or 3 are ebooks, and the last couple they've been more brief, and that sort of thing. But I did one that was more of a major book, almost everything about college ministry.
Yeah,
that's been really received well and used a lot. It is being used a lot, and so I really appreciate that. And so I just have self-published all of them, just for a variety of reasons.
Love that. And I love how you have a lot of just really helpful lists. You don't go too in depth on certain things. You just kind of give it, because people are smarter than a lot of times people give them credit for. So, but if you give them a list, then they can think through and they can take it to where they need to go. So I'm going to ask you for a quick list off the top of your head. What are the top 5 principles for a college ministry to see health and growth?
Well, I may not get to 5, but here we go. 1, they're a student of their campus. Every campus is different. And you may look at what Paul Worcester did in California. I'm going to do exactly what he did. Their campus is not just like the campus where you were and all like that. Number 2, I think they're really trying to attract, invest, train leaders, and because for 2 reasons. 1, that's one of our jobs for the church for the future. Okay, we're turning out leaders that can be leaders in churches, not just pastors and so forth, but they can be leaders. And the second thing is, because students can reach more students than we can reach, they can take.
Right.
So we invest in leaders, plus that multiplies our time. Another thing I see in those is they have a very intentional and well done freshman outreach.
Right.
As you know, freshmen are more open at the beginning of the school year than at any other time in their college career. And so they really do that well, and they connect with them personally, and they follow up on them and all of that. And I don't know how many that is. One more I would say is I think they have the college minister. There's 2 parts to this. The college minister understands what his or her strength is and really is utilizing that strength. Like some are speakers, some are not, some are, whatever. And they really, okay, this is my strength and I'm leaning into it. And then I think every ministry has an individual strength that has to do with kind of their student leaders and where they are on campus or their campus, et cetera. And they're really leaning into and maximizing that strength. That I don't know how many that is, but
that's 5. You got it.
Okay.
You nailed it. Yeah.
That was awesome, man. Yeah. That's just Arliss right there on the spot, just overflowing with wisdom and experience. Yeah.
Well, overflowing anyway.
Yeah. Hey, well, Arliss, and so many times, like Paul and I, and just really the roles we're in, sometimes we find ourselves almost being like pastors and counselors to those who are in ministry, because we become a safe space for people, right?
Sure.
And so sometimes we find that collegiate leaders or youth leaders, they don't feel valued sometimes by the students. They don't feel valued by the parents, or sometimes they don't even feel valued by maybe their pastors, or because people don't understand what they're trying to do or the value of their ministry. So 2 things, and there's really 2 parts to this question. What encouragement would you give a collegiate leader, student leader that maybe don't feel valued in their ministry? And what would you wish those pastors or those parents or their students would want to know about the value of the ministry? So an encouragement for the leader, and then what you wish people would know about the value of those next gen ministries. Yeah.
Well, part of it goes back to what I've said a while ago, and that is that this is a calling of the Lord.
Yeah.
It's not just, I thought I'd go do this or whatever like that. And no calling of the Lord is lowly, And
that's good.
So
yeah,
I mean, it is a calling of the Lord. It just period. And why do anything else, kind of thing. And I think also one of the things is that you have to, as a college minister, you have to connect with some people that get who you are. One of the dangers is that we spend all of our time talking to college students but we don't do anything that nurtures us and builds into us.
That's right.
And I think you got to do that. And like, for years I've had, different friends, and we would talk who do college ministry, get what I do. Y'all know Steve Masters. Steve Masters and I have talked for years on the phone. Sometimes somebody said, "When was the last time you talked to Steve?" I said, "Well, you mean this morning or this afternoon?" Kind of.
Yeah.
If you know Steve, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, he's great.
But you've got to have somebody who gets you and gets what you're doing and all like that. And I say, Sue said to me, my wife said to me one time, "You don't know how to talk to anybody with college students." And it really, she was right. And it really convicted me. And at that point, I started teaching an adult Sunday school class at our church, adults other than college students who were in my age category. So I started having some friends who, did different things and that sort of thing. And so I think one of the things is what we do sometimes can isolate us if we don't do some things to connect. The other thing, which I say, one of the two biggest killers of college ministers is comparison.
Yeah.
You're looking, well, here's this guy or gal over here, and boy, they're super successful, and I'm a bum, and comparison doesn't work because you don't know all that's going on over there. And, they may have $100,000 budget and you're over here working on, $20 a month, budget or something like that. And, it's crazy. And so don't compare. Just, okay, am I being what I need to be where God has called me to be? And am I connecting some other people and letting some people speak into my life? And I say, go to church. Don't just go speak or go to say, let's see how they're doing this, but go and, let church speak into your life and so forth.
That's good. Yeah, I love that, Arliss. Arliss, and I love what you said about the comparison aspect, because we can all be guilty of that. We once had a guest on here, Paul, remember he dropped a little one-liner, said, "It's a snare to compare." Yeah. And I've never forgot that. Yeah. And that's so true. It's a snare to compare.
I've not heard that. That's great.
Yeah. Well, Arliss, gosh, thank you so much for your wisdom, your experience. Gosh, I've been encouraged and blessed. I know our listeners have as well. And we always kind of love to wrap up our conversation with really the same on mission charge, that the heart behind this podcast is to see the next generation realize they're really the now generation, not only the future of the church, but they're also part of the church right now, that they have a calling on their life now, a mission on their life now. So would you give us one closing thought on that and one practical next step?
Well, one of the things I've been saying lately is believe and act on the fact that God is doing more than you know.
I love that. Yeah.
When I retired from the ministry at Arkansas State, I got some letters from some people saying, "You made the difference in my life." I didn't even know who they were. I didn't remember. Now, maybe I was senile or stupid, but I think it goes back to that thing when we're just, God is using things we don't even know. God is doing things in kids' lives we don't even realize. And so believe that and trust that and act on that when you feel like, nothing's happening, nothing's going on and all like that, And I just believe always that, and we learn later, like I'll say, somebody said, "Well, yeah, I became a Christian at that retreat." I said, "You did? I didn't know."
Yeah. That's right.
Oh, that's incredibly encouraging, Arliss. And I think our listeners are going to want to follow you and connect with your books and resources. What are some ways that they can do that?
Well, I have a blog called collegeministrythoughts.blogspot.com, and I usually post a couple of times a week, and it is none of it's brain surgery. It's somebody said I speak on about an 8th grade level, and that's probably true, or unless it's lower than that. And I try. My whole thing is it's not Bible study, it's not theology, it's just real kind of practical. How you do this, how you do that, that sort of thing. So, and it's free and so forth. And then the one commercial pitch, my books are at Amazon. So
great.
Yeah. And I really want to encourage you, Next Gen on Mission podcast family, to really follow Arliss, engage, read his stuff. You will be blessed and encouraged. Paul and I have, it's so practical where you look at it and go, man, I can utilize this in my ministry immediately. So you will be only encouraged and equipped through his resources. So we really want to encourage you with that. And Arliss, thank you so much for your time. And friends who are listening, thank you so much for your time. We love our Next Gen on Mission podcast family that is ever growing. And so we want to thank you for continuing to engage with us. And if you ever have any questions whatsoever on reaching the next generation, please email us at evangelism@nam.net. We'll try to address those on a future podcast. Also, we're just so excited about the continual growth of this podcast. And that is only because of you, podcast family, that you are engaging with us, you're sharing with us. So if this conversation has been helpful to you, we just want to encourage you to share it with people, post it on social media, continue to give us those likes and follows on your favorite podcast platform. Also, if you want to see these conversations, we are so excited. We're now uploading the video aspect on YouTube. So check out our Gen, G-E-N, Send, S-E-N-D. So GenSend YouTube channel, and be sure to subscribe to that as well. And like Paul says, give us those ratings, but only 5 stars, right, Paul? Nothing less than 5 stars. It's either 5 stars or nothing at all, right? So continue to give us those ratings. And we're just so thankful for you, podcast family. And we just want to encourage you to have a great rest of your day and tell somebody about Jesus.